Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this Friday morning for the ECOSYSTEX Insights Series webinar on the 31st of January. My name is Tilla Kross, and I work as Sustainability Programs Officer at Textile ETP. Textile ETP is an organization based in Brussels, and our aim is essentially to match textile and clothing related research and innovation with the European industry needs and priorities. And I'm very happy to host this for today's webinar. And to start with, I would like to remind you of our webinar procedures. So please be aware that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared on YouTube afterwards. Further, if you have any questions to our speakers, please type them in the chat, mentioning the name, who the question is for. And if you would like to elaborate on your question, please raise your hand and then we'll invite you to speak. And if possible, also show your video at that point in time. All right, but first I want to kick off this webinar with a very positive announcement, which is, maybe you've heard about it if you work in textile research and innovation. And this positive announcement is that the Textiles of the Future partnership that we've been working on for the past year is currently being signed. So we can officially say that there will be this Textiles of the Future partnership. If you hear about it for the first time, basically what it is that it's a public-private partnership with the European Commission. And it basically says that there will be definitely calls dedicated to the textile sector under Horizon Europe 2025 to 2027. So that's great news for you. And if you would like to be more involved with this partnership and stay up to date with all the updates linked to it, I invite you to become a Textile ETP member, because Textile ETP is the organization on the private side of this public-private partnership managing it. My colleague is dropping a link in the chat where you can learn more about what Textile ETP does and also more about the partnership. This includes, for example, our brokerage activities to build your consortium to apply to these Horizon Europe calls, and also a webinar series focused on topics that are linked to our strategic research and innovation agenda that we at Textile ETP developed together with our members in the past year. So with that being said, let me move on to today's webinar, the ECOSYSTEX Insights Series. We have a very nice agenda for you today with 4 different member projects being present. We'll start with the PESCO-UP project and Traci Kinden on proposed minimum data requirements for the textile recycling value chain. Then we hear from Jennet Orayeva from the CELLFIL project on cellulose Lyocell filaments as a scalable solution for circular textile production. Then we ask any questions to them in the Q&A. And in the second half of the webinar, we hear from Mariangela Lavanga Younghyun Kim from the FABRIX project on fostering local, beautiful, and sustainably designed regenerative textile and clothing ecosystems. And lastly, we hear from Marta Casadesús from the CIRTECHTEX project on implementation of circular economy processes to reduce textile waste in the manufacture of personal protective equipment. And of course, there will also be time to ask questions to them in the Q&A afterwards. But if you're joining us here for the first time, you might wonder what actually is ECOSYSTEX that I mentioned so often now. So let me briefly explain what ECOSYSTEX is. So it is the European Community of Practice for Sustainable Textile Ecosystem, and we here at Textile ETP facilitate this community. It was launched in January 2023 with the goal in mind to create a permanent expert community and central knowledge hub for practical application of EU-funded science and technology for textile sustainability. And in the past 2 years, our community grew quite significantly to 52 member projects, and all these member projects are EU-funded textile circularity and sustainability projects. So yeah, they have a total project budget of 350 million euros. And from these 52 member projects, we bring together 350 registered experts to work together and collaborate in working groups, but also we organize bi-monthly webinars like this one, and also an annual conference. So our objectives really of this ECOSYSTEX community are threefold. So for one, we want to foster inter-project collaboration by, as I said, bringing together the researchers in these EU-funded projects together in working groups and at events to share best practices, exchange knowledge, and discuss their topics. Secondly, we want to occasionally engage with policymakers by basically consulting our registered expert community for their scientific insights to then provide it to the European Commission and inform inform them for the policy and decision-making process. And lastly, of course, also dissemination activities, like, for example, this webinar here, because we also want to ensure that, of course, an interested public can learn about what is going on inside these research projects. So that's it about ECOSYSTEX. Now it's my pleasure to show you here this slide with all our members on there, and these 4 are the ones that you'll hear from today. And now I talked quite a bit, so it's my pleasure to bring back the agenda and also invite our first speaker of today, Traci Kinden from TEXRoad, to start the first presentation of today. Please take the floor. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for coming. It's nice to meet you. My name is Traci Kinden. I am the director at TEXRoad Foundation, and I think Tilla introduced already what we'll be chatting about today, so I won't bother you with that. Briefly, TEXRoad is a nonprofit organization established in the Netherlands. We are the foundation for data as a common language to connect the public and the private sector and keep those textile resources circulating in a way that is economically viable, transparent, and carbon neutral. Now, when I say data, it's always, what is data? What does that actually mean? Quite simply, it's information that's needed in our context to manage textiles responsibly and putting that information into a language that everyone can understand. So really concretely, this is things like quantities of textiles or the resources in the textile chain, quantities, kilos, tons. It's characteristics like fiber composition, like types and amounts of contamination, and so forth. It could be fiber length, so these sorts of defining characteristics. It's the activities that are happening, especially along the value chain. So think in the post-consumer textile chain, it might be sorting, it might be preparing for recycling. In the regular value chain, it might be spinning, knitting, weaving, etc. So activities, locations, the geography, the specific point where things are taking place, or where the materials are actually sitting, and then the companies. So this is legal entities that are responsible for these materials. So it's actually quite a simple, data can be quite simple. It doesn't have to be overly complex, though there are some fine details, and we'll walk through a few of those today. If we have this type of data, especially in the circular textile chain, then we can do very powerful things like providing a packet of digital information that can go along with material shipments. So a supplier and a buyer have the same understanding and expectations about those materials. If the data is consistent and it's flowing, then EPR reporting along the post-consumer value chain can be automated, and of course, in other areas of the industry as well. And then things like input for traceability systems, this data that's needed for traceability, transparency, evidence for certifications. If we can align this data in a simple way from the beginning, then all of these other applications for the information get a whole lot easier. So at TEXRoad, our specialty is making this information really clear, making it well organized, aligning it for a broad range of stakeholders, and then we're beginning to enable the secure data exchange across the public and the private sectors as well. So it's a little bit about data, a little bit about TEXRoad. If you can get this data flowing in this way, then the result over time is that companies that invest in digitization and companies that are taking ownership of their data can actually start to have a competitive advantage, meaning they can be more efficient with their materials and with their time, especially with policy monitoring or policy reporting that's coming up. I'm sure we're all very familiar with the benefits and challenges of policy, especially in reporting. But the other interesting thing that can start to happen is that intelligence, information for policy making and to inform business activities can start to be available in near real time. So it becomes easier and faster to address these really big roadblocks that have started to hold us back from the future of textiles that we want. And we can address these roadblocks together because we have the data to do it. So TEXRoad does this type of work with many different projects, and we also do some work internally to develop data services and products so we can make this future happen together. And we're very excited to do some of this work together with the PESCO-UP, well, within the PESCO-UP project as a partner. We work on data really closely with VTT and with reverse resources. Now, if you haven't seen it already, there's a new video on LinkedIn and probably the PESCO-UP website, a brief overview of the project that's quite nice and clear. But essentially what PESCO is all about, PESCO-UP, sorry, is all about is recycling for mixed polyester cotton textile waste. And it's not just taking the waste textile apart and doing anything else with it. It really focuses on new high value or high quality cotton products or polyester products across a range of applications. So not just back into new textiles, but a range of things. It's a very, very interesting project. So data hits in a big way in three places or three parts of the work stream. One is identification and sorting systems. The second is supply-demand marketplace or textile recycling marketplace. And then the third is data sharing among stakeholders or along the value chain. Now, we're going to touch on the second and the third one today with some concrete examples. We're certainly working on the first one, but in 15 minutes, I think touching on the second and the third is a nice bite-sized piece for us today. So, these proposed minimum data requirements, we're very careful about proposed because obviously standards making is an ongoing process and we want to feed into that. We don't want to suggest that we're dictating the standards making process. So this proposed minimum data requirements have been put into deliverable 2.1, which will be publicly released a little bit later on in the project. So all this information will be available to you through a deliverable in the coming time. But essentially what these requirements do is put input material requirements for a specific process, for example, recycling, and details about the available supply into the same language using the same specific data fields. And what can happen then is a better match of supply and demand because you have a raw material supply or an input material supply and a process that wants that supply. And you can put those things together on a recycling marketplace, for example, with exactly the same information or expectations about haves and needs. And then the other thing that is possible with this aligned data is high quality information readily available in a digital format for materials shipments. So suppliers, once they do sell to a downstream customer, both supplier and buyer have a really concrete description and aligned expectations for what was purchased and what was shipped. And in the off chance that something is received and was not as expected, both supplier and buyer have a quantifiable way to measure what was right and what was not, and what was agreed upon. It's a really, really powerful thing. So we're going to zoom into some specific examples here in a moment, but I'm going to break this down for you. There are 3 types of information in this packet of data that should go along with the materials in the value chain. So we look at each step in a high-level way: sorting, preparing for recycling, just as a concrete example of what we're talking about here. So 3 types of information in this this data packet, if you like. The first is about the legal entity. It's the same thing you'd expect: name, address, registration number. We're not going to bother with that today because, quite frankly, there's nothing new in that area. The next thing that we break down is a batch level detail, and this is stuff like quantities, how's the shipment packaged, what are the shipping validation documents, but it's also about the activities. So what happened to this batch of materials at the supplier before it went to the buyer? And we'll zoom in on an example there. And then specifications. Specifications are the really fine details that are important to match supply and demand to find that good fit. And so we've got some examples to walk through for you there as well. One of the things that we've learned from the TRIC project, which just wrapped up last year, is that data fields can be misunderstood, and that leads to errors in the available information. So when you have clear guidelines for data requirements, that helps to solve some of those problems. So we're taking a lesson from the TRIC project and starting to go through the process of clarifying, what do these data fields mean? Do we all agree? What level of information should be used in which purposes, et cetera, et cetera. So as I said, some concrete examples here. This is the list of data fields that we are proposing for batch level, that batch level chunk of information. Again, nothing really rocket sciencey, and we're going to zoom into the activities line item. Now, activity seems like a reasonably simple thing, but what we have learned over time is that there's a very simple version. So it was sorted, it was prepared as a feedstock, and then it was recycled, and then of course you can go on down the line. But the other thing that we know is that there's a much more detailed version that in some cases is really important. So sure, it was sorted, but maybe it was automatically sorted by something like the fiber sort machine or the Matoa or the Tomra, et cetera. So there was automated sorting involved. Then it was mechanically pre-treated with with tearing, with chopping, with metal detection. So really itemizing everything that happened to that batch of materials along the way. The other thing that we see, so when is the simple version needed? When is the detailed version needed? Is part of the discussion and the development now within the PESCO-UP project. But there's also just simply aligning terminology and definitions. So I've used the term pre-processing forever for this prepare for recycling or prepare as a feedstock step for a variety of my own reasons. But in the past years working in projects, I've also come across the term pre-treatment, and now mechanical pre-treatment versus chemical pre-treatment. And then there are a couple of other terms that get used to mean kind of the same thing as well. So part of the work here, or the trick in doing data really well, is getting to the bottom of, well, what do we actually mean? Can we align? Can we clearly define each of these values in this activity data field so that we all actually understand what's meant? So that's part of the work there. And then I'll give you another example from the specifications list. So again, where these fine details of matching supply and demand really matter. This is mostly the full data list, or the recommended list of data fields. You'll be able to see it as the deliverable releases, and so this will all be publicly available information. We're going to zoom in So content is here, yeah, color, a lot of things that are pretty easily understood. We're going to zoom in on contaminants and accuracy, because this is another place where if you sit in a desk and start to think through how this should work, that's one thing. But when you start to take it out into the real world, then you start learning other things. So I'll give you a couple of concrete examples about, well, yeah, how do we clarify contamination and accuracy so we have good data flowing along the chain? The first interesting bit is, well, how's contamination actually quantified? In the case of elastane, let's say we have a technology that can take polyester, cotton, none of that's a problem, but elastane is actually a contaminant. Well, we all know that elastane is measured in percentage of total weight. That's pretty easy. On the other hand, there are some contaminants at some stages of the process that are measured in something like parts per million or other units. And so getting some clarity on, okay, well, what's the type of contamination? How is that typically measured in terms of it, like quantified in terms of amount? And how do we make that really consistent so that everybody has the same expectations? The second interesting thing is about accuracy. What does that actually mean? When a supplier is talking about how accurate their specification is or how accurate their measurement is, they might be talking in terms of, well, we have a consistent production process once a quarter or something. We have quality control, we check the quality. And so when we say it's, plus or minus 2% accuracy, something, it means this. The buyer might be expecting that every single batch gets tested. And these are very different. Certainly, maybe the material is within the required specification every time, but it is important to understand the difference in, well, what do you mean by accuracy versus what does the supplier mean versus what does the buyer mean in terms of accuracy? The other interesting little nerd bit that happens here is, well, how should we be quantifying accuracy? If some contaminants are measured in percentage of total weight, but other contaminants are measured in parts per million, should accuracy hold those same units, or should accuracy always be a plus minus percentage? And then finally, if that doesn't muddy the waters enough, we also need to figure out the best and most consistent way to communicate what the expectations are so that when data is put into these data fields, it's good and it's well understood. So this is the type of work now that we're digging into in the PESCO-UP project on this recommended proposed minimum data requirements in the recycling value chain, so we can get to this future of easy to use data. Let's see. We're working on this in terms of moving the data around across the value chain in marketplaces, and then in this sort of packet of information, a digital product passport or digital material passport, if you like, that can follow those materials. So if you're in an ECOSYSTEX project, we'll open up an invitation for you to give us feedback and share your own thoughts on this, either in the spring or the fall. So we're gonna do it a bit in waves, so look forward to that. And then the deliverable 2.1, once the review by the European Commission is completed, that will also be available for you. So I will leave you with that and look forward to hearing any questions you might have after the next presentation.
Thank you so much, Traci, for your presentation. And exactly like she said, I would like to invite now Jennet from the CELLFIL project to start the second presentation, and then we'll address your questions afterwards.
Thank you, Tilla, for introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I will share now my slides, and I hope you can see my slides in a few minutes.
Yes, perfect.
I hope Excellent. Hello, everyone. I am Jennet Orayeva. I work with RTDS. We are based in Vienna, Austria. We are the coordinators of CELLFIL project, and CELLFIL is one of our innovative projects. And today I'll briefly introduce you with the work, with what work we do on this project. CELLFIL stands for Cellulose Lyocell Filaments as a scalable solution for circular textile production. We are a new project. We started in June last year, and the project will last 4 years. It has been funded under Horizon Europe Innovation Action Program, and we have 15 partners in our project. And the aim of the CELLFIL project is mainly to replace the synthetic fibers with bio-based and sustainable lyocell filaments to develop also market strategies to help to take these filaments to the market and upscale these innovative processes that will be outcome of the project. And the main aim of the project is to address the environmental issues caused by synthetic fibers and prevent the land waste and also ocean pollution coming from synthetic fibers. And the nature of the project is that we do support the REA's strategy on generating knowledge, new knowledge on textile products and promoting the agricultural products. We start in the project from technical readiness level 5 as a pilot stage, and together with industry innovators and leaders, we will improve and test the novel cellulosic filaments across the value chain. And the final end products from these innovations aim to be commercially ready, and by the end of the project there will be a roadmap, a market strategy that will be available for the public. So as I mentioned, we have 15 partners, 11 of them coming from industry, and 3 academic institutions. We have Aalto University, we have Hochschule Niederrhein University, as well as Riga's Technical University, contributing a lot with research in textile industry. And the main objectives of our project, we have 5 key aspects to innovate across the value chain. Since the value chain, textile value chain is very complex and difficult to, not difficult, but challenging to introduce innovations because it's fragmented, it's complex, and there are different stakeholders and also varying standards. So through the project, through collaborative framework in this project, our aim is to bring together 15 stakeholders across the value chain and to work towards optimizing the lyocell filament, feedstock and yarn production, meaning shifting from 100% primary raw materials to recycled sources and alternative feedstocks. And the aim for that also to help to reduce the burden on overuse of environmental resources and also the water resources. And we aim to enhance the yarn properties, refine the production process with the goal of achieving low impact and industrial scale lyocell filament production. CELLFIL will optimize machine settings as well to create segment specific fabrics that improve circularity, recyclability, with key partners also contributing and weaving expertise, knitting and finishing to ensure that the quality and the ultimately offering valuable insights for the lyocell filament use in fabric production, especially benefiting the small and medium enterprises in the textile sector. We also aim, develop and validate textile applications using optimized filaments, yarns and fabrics with enhanced recyclability. We collaborate with leading textile industry partners. At least 9 products will be prototyped across 3 segments: performance wear, automotive textiles, and as well as technical textiles. In the project, we will also conduct life cycle and zero waste studies. The project will provide insights contributing to a public roadmap for upscaling the project. And these are the main objectives that we aim to achieve. The project impact will target 3 specific issues. Our aim is to replace synthetic fibers with the sustainable lyocell filaments. Thus, we aim to reduce landfill waste and ocean pollution. And as we know, only 1% of the clothing today is recycled, and 8% of the European microplastics released into oceans, they are also related to synthetic fibers. So we aim to mitigate these environmental environmental impacts. The project also will impact on industry optimization by enhancing the sustainability and functionality of various textile applications through collaborative production framework as we work together with all stakeholders across the value chain. And the economic and social impacts of the project will be that we prepare European textile industry to be sustainable, competitive, and we achieve that through the adoption on a large scale of this bio-based Lyocell filament yarns. As the methodology for the project, how we do it, how we achieve it, it's a complex process. As I mentioned, we start from the production, from sourcing and identifying the raw material until end of the value chain when we do produce already end products using these novel cellulosic filaments and introduce them into the consumers. So CELLFIL will address the challenge of sustainable innovation in fragmented textile industry. This is the main innovative or solution that we offer in the project, is that we unify the textile value chain, and we start from the technical readiness 5, and we develop as we progress forward, and we're taking by creating this collaborative framework, CELLFIL will optimize the entire textile production process, and we achieve that through identifying and sourcing the raw materials. We develop efficient methods during the manufacturing. We enhance the functionality of these filaments. We create various textile prototypes to test for the versatility, for the sustainability, and for we create various textile prototypes. We ensure that the quality is good and it's sustainable. We analyze the market in the project. We will evaluate the environmental impacts of the new developed products. We assess the economic feasibility, and we strategize the upscaling opportunities for these novel filaments. As I mentioned, by the end of the project, there will be 9 prototypes in 3 different segments. We will test the new filaments in performance apparel. We will test them in automotive textile and composites, as well as in technical textiles, such as producing technical rubber reinforcements and testing them for durability. As for the project timeline, the project will last 4 years. And this year, already in July, we will start the production of orange cellulose feedstock. And as you saw in the slide, in previous slide, the raw materials that will be used for these filaments are mainly orange pulp or citrus pulp, wood pulp, also recycled textiles, and as well as other second-generation feedstock, including some of them coming from agricultural industry sector and some other second-generation feedstock. So this year we will start the production of orange cellulose feedstock. Then they will be tested for the production of the new Lyocell filament yarn using different alternative feedstocks blend. Then the prototypes construction will begin next year, and most of the prototypes construction and testing will happen in 2027, and in 2028 we focus pretty much on delivering the final product to companies that will test the end user products, and we will develop the market strategies in the last year and release to the public the business model for upscaling these new filaments. And this is the overview of our project. We are new. We are at the beginning stage, and here you can see all the contacts of our project. You can see our website. You can follow us on social media. And if you have any project-related or dissemination-related questions or would like to get in touch with us, you have the contact information here on the slide. And I thank you for your attention. And as Tilla mentioned earlier, you can ask your questions in the chat and we will answer towards the end of the webinar. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Jennet, for your interesting presentation introducing the CELLFIL project to the ECOSYSTEX community. And as she said, I invite everyone to ask your questions to both Traci and Jennet in the chat now, so we can address them in the Q&A. So far, there is only one question from Stefan that I would pose to you, Traci, now, if you're still with us. And then,
yes,
lovely. So let's see. I'll read it out. So your description of recycled fibers appears to be technology applied, understood by the processor, and lab values according to the used equipment. Are you aware that this is neither the language of the sorter, who has to select items of garment for a certain fraction for such fibers, nor of the spinner, who needs to process the described fibers in a stable process into a uniform yarn with defined parameters?
Sure. Yeah. So let me very briefly open up a little bit about where my experience comes from. So I spent the last 13 plus years working in one way or another pretty closely with the post-consumer textile value chain. So this is the collectors, the sorters, and then onward towards pre-processing recycling. So I am aware that the examples that I gave were not a perfect fit for anyone, and in some cases a bit high level. This is for two reasons. One is that we're still really discussing the fine details of how this is going to go within the project, how those values might look like. So that's one. And the other is, yeah, I mean, the aim was to just give a few concrete but non-specific examples, because everybody on this call comes from a slightly different place. TEXroad has really practical experience in collecting and managing data in the post-consumer supply chain. So things like how do sorters operations actually work? How do they describe the different material fractions or sorted textile fractions that they sell out to different types of companies? And then how do those need to be described once they go into like sorting for recycling or pre-processing into a recycling feedstock? So all of those are taken into account to some degree or another. As you're probably also aware, there are no real standards in the post-consumer world, at least not yet, or in the textile recycling world, not yet. So all of this is being figured out step by step. What's been really interesting in the PESCO-UP project is that it's a really nice experience of, well, what are the types of descriptions and data needed in a project in a lab setting where you really want to control variables to learn what is and isn't possible, versus what are the types of information that's feasible to collect and report, for example, along with material batches sold between suppliers and buyers on a regular basis. And indeed that, yeah, not every batch is lab tested for a variety of reasons, including time and cost. So working with that knowledge, the experience on the team, perhaps experienced by people such as yourself, yeah, it will all come into play here. We have a few years left. We have 3 years, little less than 3 years left on the PESCO-UP project. So we'll have a chance to dive a little bit deeper into all of those things. When it comes to what like all the way down to yarn spinning, we're not, at this point, we're not digging really deeply into what leaves the recycling process, like the data that leaves the recycling process to go back into, for example, spinning, or yeah, maybe it's a wet spinning process or so forth. It's something that we certainly could do potentially, but we haven't dug really deeply into what the needs are there. So if that's interesting for you, yeah, you can also let me know. I hope this answered the question adequately, but you can contact me. We could take the discussion offline if you're interested as well.
Thank you, Traci. And there's just now a question also to Jennet from the CELLFIL project in the chat. So if you could, on your camera again. So Francine asks, how does it plan to communicate its progress and findings to stakeholders and the public?
Thank you, Francine, for the question. We are very grateful that we joined ECOSYSTEX platform just recently. CELLFIL is one of its 50 European EU-funded projects specifically focused on textile and creating collaboration on this platform. So we'll be present in ECOSYSTEX platform, and one of our channels is to communicate through ECOSYSTEX platform, but also CELLFIL project has its website. We have social media channels, we have LinkedIn channel, we have Twitter. We do participate in textile conferences. For example, a few of our partners actually coming from Aalto University, also Hochschule Niederrhein University in Germany. They are attending Cellulosic Fiber Conference in March. They will be presenting also some CELLFIL related research related activities. They will be present. So we do target, of course, major textile conferences to be there, to be present, to communicate our findings. And also as the project progresses on the project website, we will publish the project results and project activities.
Thanks, Jennet, for sharing these channels. And there's a second question to you by Andreas about which equipment is available if you work with wet spinning.
Thank you for the question, Andreas. This question very much related to our technical partners. We do have manufacturers from Italy, from Austria. I can forward this question to our partners. I can connect you, and we can definitely give you more technical details about the equipment that they use. I myself, I'm not a textile expert, so I cannot give a specific technical answer to this question. But I take a note, and I will get back later to Andreas Vego if I can get his contact information.
Okay, sounds like a good plan. Thank you, Jennet. And let's see. Let me quickly check the chat. Okay, there are no direct questions at this point in time. So let's see if you can stay with us until the end of this webinar. If there are some more questions and we have time, we can address them in the second Q&A as well. Let's see. But for now, I would like to close the first Q&A and invite the next speaker, Mariangela and Young Kim from the FABRIX project to please take the floor and share with us what they're working on.
Thanks, Tilla. Thanks a lot for inviting us at the ECOSYSTEX Insights Series. I'm Mariangela Lavanga, and I work as associate professor at the Erasmus University in Rotterdam. And I have an economics and economic geography and cultural economics background, and fashion and textile are an industry that is quite interesting for me because I always look at how city can engage with culture and creative industries to support, let's say, more sustainable development. And textile somehow has always been connected to city. The first factory towns were all linked to textile. Industrial revolution is about textile, but we also testify in the last two centuries almost this drive from the cities to other countries far away, and that also meant that we lost touch with manufacturing and production techniques, skills, and so on. So FABRIX is also linked to heritage, I would say, and the skills that are required to engage with more sustainable practices. In the FABRIX project, we are one of the partners, and at the Erasmus University, I work with my colleague Amanda Brandelero, who is also an expert on urban circular economies and craft, and Young Kim, who is also today with us in the series. And she's a postdoc researcher, and she studied before at the Columbia University in New York when she did a PhD on urban planning and also circular economy practices among small and medium enterprise in the New York city. So today we will give you a brief description of what FABRIX is. FABRIX stands for Fostering Local, Beautiful and Sustainably Designed Regenerative Textile and Clothing Ecosystem. And we are, I don't know why my slides are not moving. Okay. We are a consortium of 9 partners. We have 3 universities, TU Delft, Erasmus, and the Economics and Business School in Athens. So we are mostly social science university and scholars with urban planners from Delft. And then we have 2 partners who are really into the textile and clothing ecosystem, TCBL, which is one of the largest network of textile labs in Europe and is engaged in many European projects in textile and recently also presented at the ecosystem their earwear project. And we have SOFA, which is a social enterprise in Athens, really involved in urban manufacturing. Then we have the city of Rotterdam with also the Department of Culture and Circular Economy. And we have the Osmos network. I think Adrian is also today present in the webinar, and is a network and creative agency also involved in European projects that deal with space and making in cities. And we have 2 technological companies, IDIME in Spain, who is working on circular economy tools, and Roadmapper in France, who is the one that will develop the so-called Mantle of FABRIX platform. What is interesting about this project is that the call was featured in the cluster 4 around human-centered technologies, and the call explicitly asked for urban and localized manufacturing that let's say support creativity, but also the European Bauhaus. So you already have this sort of link between culture and creativity, technology and urban manufacturing. We started last year, so it's almost 1 year that we are working on this project, and it's a project of 3 years, and we have a budget of 2.5 million, which includes also funding for third party. So we just 2 months ago launched our first open call for facilitators, and we will soon launch also a second open call for small and medium-sized businesses. So the main goals of FABRIX, and I think this is something which connects also with what Traci was saying before, we look at also data and information around the ecosystem around textile and clothing, but very specifically, we look at the spatial and local aspect. So it's very much about understanding both the spatial and the network needs of the sectors. And by doing so, we really focus on 2 pilot cases, the city of Rotterdam and Athens and the region around. And we really want to support the local action to strengthen this ecosystem through this open call that we are launching, the development of a digital platform, and in this way facilitate also policymakers and other actors, intermediaries, facilitator that aim at strengthening the local circular value chain. The way FABRIX is structured, if you see this figure, we move from left to right. So we start with observing and analyzing the networks that already exist in these 2 cities and areas, and we try to understand what are the needs, but also what is missing, and already trying to highlight some of the facilitators or the keynotes that could be the one that strengthen this network. We are almost finishing with analyzing our first round of interviews in Rotterdam and Athens. And we also have a PhD from TU Delft who is doing the spatial analysis with data from national statistics. So we also have evolutionary data from the 70s until now. And with the launch of the call in December, we will soon have also the facilitator who will start giving us also feedback on the first prototype of our digital platform. So soon, I think in this month and the next month, we will also have our first deliverable linked to the analysis, and we start then to move the second year towards the operationalization. So through the calls and facilitators and SMEs engaging with the project, we will work in making the platform a useful tool set for both the business and policymakers in the regional space. And in this way, we really want to reterritorialize the circular economy and link it more with space and spatial planning. The year 3 will be very much linked to the implementation with more sort of action research approach. And the idea is really to strengthen at the end the network between different stakeholders, not just in one city, but then also connected with the other spaces of networks. And I give now the floor to Young.
Thank you, Mariangela. So hi, everyone. My name is Young. Today, I'll be shedding more light on FABRIC's approach to the research and mapping of the ecosystem. So to ensure that the FABRIC's research and platform addresses both the key challenges and opportunities of really rebuilding and reterritorializing the textile and clothing sectors in Rotterdam and Athens, we've been mapping the ecosystem of circular textile and fashion activities in these two cities. And here, when we say mapping, our approach is really to highlight both the locational or spatial aspect, as well as the relational aspect of the textile and fashion sectors, just reflecting the approach that Mariangela just addressed. So in terms of first the spatial aspect, this is really to understand where the circular textile and fashion businesses are taking place in Rotterdam and Athens, as well as like the suppliers and urban manufacturers along the value chain, and whether there are any signs of clustering or hotspots that haven't been highlighted before. And so in order to do that, we first had to agree on which are the business types, the business categories that we'll be focusing on. And so we wanted to build onto previous research that have really looked at identifying these business codes that should be examined. So business codes here meaning the SBI codes or the NACE codes. And so we mainly refer to the Mode in Rotterdam report commissioned by the municipality to really look at which businesses compose this textile and fashion ecosystems when looking at the urban context. And we also refer to the PBL report or the Environmental Assessment Agency in Netherlands to see which are the business codes that reflect the circular businesses along the various R ladders of the circular economy activities. And so with these identified business codes and communicated closely with Athens, between Athens and Rotterdam team to also update these codes that really meet the local context of these two cities, we're now referring to data sets such as LISA data, which is more LISA and Orbis data, which are business level micro database. LISA is more for Netherlands case and has data on like employment, established level data. Orbis more of a global context that has more of finance related data, as well as for Athens, the more national business registry data to really look at the location data, employment data, and other types of micro business level data to really have this to add more light on the spatial mapping of our ecosystem. And I believe the analysis, the initial analysis of the mapping will be shared in the near future in our FABRIX website. So please stay tuned for that as well. So in addition, oops, next please. Yeah. In addition to the spatial dimension of the ecosystem, we're also trying to understand the network or the relational aspect of the textile and clothing ecosystems. And for this, we're really talking to the people like the businesses, facilitators, government actors in Rotterdam and Athens. And we've also conducted co-creation workshops to really engage in these dialogues to understand the key challenges, opportunities in circularizing, in facilitating circular economy in fashion, as well as how they engage in collaborations and partnerships. Some recurring themes that pertain to both Rotterdam and Athens is that it is, of course, very expensive to localize textile and clothing circularity. And this really is also relates to the issue of space, which is very challenging for businesses to have access to affordable and accessible spaces to both be in close proximity to customers, but as well as to employ people who have distance to the labor market. There's also the issue of lack of data. Of course, we've been talking about data in this webinar series, but it really is a key challenge for localizing the textile and clothing sector in terms of circular economy. And this pertains to all different categories of people that we've talked to. So for businesses in circular fashion really want to be able to measure the impacts, so both in terms of ecological as well as social impacts that they're making through their circular activities, so that by communicating these impacts, they can really become more competitive in the market, have more close relationship with their clients or customers. But it is very challenging to really have a good measurement of these impacts that they're making. Facilitators also would like to better quantify the collaborations, matches, or networks that they're facilitating within their local context. But of course, this is has been difficult as well. And for government actors as well, the government actors would want more impact level data to understand the circular activities taking place in their cities and where these activities are taking place so that they can coordinate their resource allocation better. There's, of course, also difficulties in finding the right partners to engage in circular activities in textile and fashion. So in both Athens and Rotterdam, this need for some kind of registry or directory to see what is being produced and where is a raised challenge as well. And last but not least, another theme is on this importance of cross-sector collaboration. And so when it comes to circular economy, we're seeing that even within the textile and clothing sector, there is like a silo between the more industrial side, so like the workwear, mattresses, bed sheets, etc., and the fashion side. But in fact, there could be really good opportunities for collaboration, for knowledge exchange between these sectors. So there's an opportunity to really bridge that gap as well between these stakeholders. So in order for such ecosystem research, like both mapping and relational, in terms of mapping the both spatial and relational aspect of the ecosystem, we're really working closely with the platform development team in the FABRIX consortium, and we're really communicating closely with them so that we can really design features, platform features, and user experiences that address the key challenges in localizing textile and clothing circularity. And so just yesterday in our meeting, we also had a chance to see like the first prototype of this platform, and this will be continually updated. But the focus really is on to map and visualize the spatial distribution of textile and clothing industry actors and enable a more relational mapping of the participants as well. And yeah, as this gets updated, we'll be sure to keep you all posted as well.
Thanks, Young. Okay, so where we are now, it's in few weeks we have one of the first deliverable about a self-assessment tool on circularity. And in the next months, we have another deliverable on also the first insight into the platform. And in few days, the first call for facilitator will also close. And as I mentioned before, we have 200K cascade funding for both facilitator and SMEs to act, let's say, in the circular ecosystem of two cities. They don't need to be located in Rotterdam or Athens, but their sort of activities that they want to develop should be, let's say, to facilitate the local ecosystem in these two cities. And the idea behind the open call is that we don't want to offer just support, but really learning support and work together with both facilitators and SMEs to make sure that the FABRIX or Mantle platform is something that can really support their work and facilitate more industrial symposiums and also connect with the ideas around the new European Bauhaus. So that at the end it becomes really an opportunity and a driver to expand the network that they already have and include more stakeholders in their endeavor. So the first call will close soon, and we are aiming at financing two facilitators in Rotterdam and two facilitators in Athens. And by facilitators, we mean really organizations which are not just maybe producing or distributing or goods, but also service in the sense that they maybe take not just a production role, but also a role in developing events or initiatives to strengthen and empower the local ecosystem. So it could be from non-profit to for-profit organization, from public to private cooperatives, and so on. So we are very open to different sort of facilitators. One, let's say, output of the project will also be on conceptualizing what a facilitator or intermediary in the textile and local ecosystem could also be and the function that they could have. The budget is 25K for each, and the duration of the subcontract will be on, towards until the end of the FABRIX project in December 26. And we really want to choose facilitators who are able really to engage the local stakeholders and try really to scale up initiatives that are being then developed during the project. The second open call will target instead the small and medium size enterprises, and it will be launched around July this year. And we aim at funding at least 10 SMEs per each city, and each of them will receive around 5K. And the idea is that we also look at SMEs that maybe work or propose a project for increased collaboration among different actors in the sector. If you want to know more about the project, you can check our LinkedIn or Instagram, and we will also develop more webinar and an opportunity for different stakeholders to engage. The fact that we have 3 or 4 partners located in Rotterdam and few in Athens means that we really are aiming at a lot of face-to-face interaction, but definitely we will also try to find a way to include hybrid collaboration also for exchanging with other projects. And I think we are all looking forward to hear more about the ECOSYSTEX partners and also to develop more projects together. Thanks. I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you very much,
Mariangela. Back the floor to Tilla.
Thank you to the two of you for your presentation, and also, yes, of course, if you have any questions to you, please write them in the chat. Also, if you have questions about the two open calls, I'm sure both of them can hopefully answer your questions. And now it's time for the last fourth project presentation of today's webinar. So I invite Marta from Tèxtils.CAT on our virtual stage. Yes, there you are. Great. And please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Tilla, for your presentation and invitation here today. I'll start sharing the presentation. Okay. So I will explain our project, CIRTECHTEX project. Its name stands for Implementation of Circular Economy Processes to Reduce Textile Waste in the Manufacture of Personal Protective Equipment. And now I will explain all of this in detail. Starting for who are we, the consortium, then a little bit more an explanation of the coordinators and the objectives of the project. What are we doing? What have done till now? And then the next steps that we plan to do. Okay, so the consortium, as we are working on processing recycled waste, well, to recycle waste, textile waste, we need to engage the whole actors in the value chain of marine textile. So the consortium is made for companies that are normally working with marine textile, the leaders of the project. And those are the names. Tranemo, who is making the final garments, Filament Made, who is making yarns, same as Von Filba. Blau Fabric, it's a weaving company. Grau SA are dyers and finishers. And then we have Leitat, who's the Research and Technical Center, and then Tèxtils.CAT, which are us. I am from Tèxtils.CAT, which are an association of companies, a cluster. The coordinator, as I said, it's the company Marina Textile. It's a textile company dedicated to the development and manufacture of technical fabrics, mainly flame retardant for personal protection. They are located in Barcelona, and they are trying to obtain specialized technical fabrics with European and American certifications. In order to protect people, working in high-risk environments and extreme weather conditions, etc. So we are working in the PPE sector, and this is not easy in the sense that we have these regulations, and we are when we are recycling, we have to take into account that the product has to have good quality. Then the sustainability, it's something that is very important for the company, and this is why they started this project. Here in this timeline, you can see that there are different products. Now I will speak about, a little bit more about them, because they don't only fabric one kind of product, but a lot of products with different compositions, with different risks. This is why also the project, it's not easy, let me say. So the objective of the project is to uptake circular economy approach to dramatically reduce technical textiles waste generation and upcycle them into high-grade PPS fabrics. The goal of the project is to achieve the recycling of textile waste using a minimum of 20 recycled pre- and post-consumer material in a minimum of 80 of PPS manufacturers. These values are very important and are the basis of all the actions that are done in the project. So what we want to do actually is, and what we have said is that we want to transform the process of merino textile, the linear process that is a traditional process, the one that has been done till now, to a circular process. And we need to achieve these values to be as more circular as possible. So we need these high value residues, and then we can achieve this transformation from linear to circular. Here we are collecting a lot of waste. We are collecting waste for all the stages of the value chain. So we start collecting fibers, we start collecting yarns, all that we can take in those processes in the manufacture of the yarns. Mainly, then we have in the fabrics, making the fabric, we collect the edges of the loom. Then when we do the garment, when we sew, etc., when we cut, we have also these leftovers. And then we also collect the used garments. We have to say that we also collect the quality control fabrics, also discarded fabrics, and also in the dyeing and finishing process, we also have some waste and we also collect it. We prevent all of this to the landfill stage. We don't want them to go to the landfill, and we transform all this waste into new fabrics. The complicated part of the process lies mainly here, because I have said that we collect all of different wastes from different stages, which means that we have raw waste, then dyed and finished waste, which are different ones, but also this dyed waste, we can divide them into pre-consumer waste and post-consumer waste. All these wastes have different characteristics, and we have to be able to process them accordingly in order to have this high quality fabric that we want. Also, apart from this, we have to take into account that we have these different products, all of these with different compositions. So if we want to collect all of these, you have to multiply these stages per the different products that we have. In order to do that, as I said, we need a very high quality waste. This is very important. So first of all, we have started starting the traceability, which is a very important part of this process, also in other recycling processes, of course. Then we need the stakeholders engagement and supply management. We do the waste recovery, but we also do a training. We need all the people working on the process to know what exactly we're doing. And then when we do the demonstration of the circular economy, is because all the processes are set, and then we can start testing and we can start certification. Then the impact assessment also is in parallel, and it's also a very important stage in order to certify that we are doing the correct things and we are on the right track. We have done some preliminary tests, first of all, in order to check that what we want to do is possible. Then, as I said, we prepared a traceability system that works well inside all the marine facilities and for all the stakeholders working in the project. We have everything very well identified inside the factory and also the warehouse. And then we have these waste streams. These different waste streams with a different label and everything, it's clear. When we receive something, we don't want to check everything because it's a waste of time, and then we need all this working. To do that, we have prepared guidelines to ensure this good quality waste recovery. These guidelines are available for all the stakeholders of the project, and they are using it in order to do the traceability process right. Apart from that, we thought that it was important to do on-site trainings, which means that we prepared some material and we worked with the persons working in the factories in order for them to know what exactly we are doing, as I said, and then they can do a good recovery. This is what we have done. Now we are working on the manufacturing of yarn and fabric. We are analyzing legal constraints and uncertainties regarding the application of the waste framework directives and extended production responsibility schemes for textiles across all the EU member states. You have to take into account that we are collecting waste from different countries and we are managing it, and this is kind of a bottleneck that we're facing now because how these laws are developing, and we have to be very careful and well to check everything in order to do things right in this sense. The next steps that we plan is to have an LCA evaluation for the new recycled materials. So when the company finally can sell these products, they can explain that they are doing things right and the new product is better than the others, which is something very important because sometimes the customers maybe think that some thing that is recycled has less quality. Have to do work in this sense. Then we are planning to escalate the project, and if you want to know more, of course, we can visit the site of Marina Textile where all the information of the project is being updated regularly. Regarding the messages for the sector that we have to say, some things that we have learned, it's that the results demonstrate that the circularity of technical textiles is possible. We have to manage some things that are not in the fashion sector maybe, but it's something that it's possible. And the collaboration of the stakeholders in order to have this good quality waste is very important. It's something that we also have learned and can be used as an advice for all the companies that want to do a similar process. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marta, for your presentation of the CELLFIL project and sharing what you're working on and current learnings. Now it's time for the second Q&A for the FABRIX project and also the CELLFIL project. There was some action in the chat concerning the FABRIX project. I'll read out the one question from Stefan. So thank you for that. So for the FABRIX project, which part of the textile chain are you focusing on with your local circular fabric system? Depending on which variety of surfaces, fabrics, and materials you want to include, to my view, you will depend on specific suppliers which need a certain volume to act economically. Do you have professional industrial partners for those steps? So do you want to elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Stefan, for the question. And I think our colleagues from the FABRIX Consortium also addressed. But to add to that, so in our ecosystem mapping research, we're really taking a comprehensive view of the value chain actors. So not limiting to a specific fabric type or finishing processes, but like all the business categories that make up the textile and fashion sectors, by referring to the reports that we addressed earlier that really specify these business codes or NACE or SBI codes parts that compose the fashion and textile value chain actors. As Stefan mentioned, the need for volume, that definitely came up in our interview as well, with like more industrial upcycling or recycling textile partners. And so I think that's why the interviews that we've been doing are really useful, in that they really also shed more light on both the common challenges that we shared today, but as well as some of the unique challenges faced by the different actors along the chain. And yeah, Mariangela, anything that you'd like to?
Yeah, I'm also thinking because we have two cities, and one is Rotterdam, which has no tradition, let's say, in manufacturing or textile. It's let's say a third or fourth tier fashion city, if we want to say. At the same time, we have Athens, who still has in the city quite a lot of manufacturing.
Oh,
I think Mariangela's
froze.
Sorry, I think you lost me.
Yes, it froze for a bit.
So, and so Athens still has quite a lot of manufacturing in the city center. So we didn't want to limit ourselves in one part of the supply chain, but see what is at the moment present in these two cities, and especially, let's say, applying this case to cities who one has no tradition, let's say, in textile, and the other one maybe a risk of losing the urban manufacturing that it has, and also questioning why, let's say, the Netherlands and Greece do not collaborate with each other on textile. And the other parts which we discovered during the first months of the project was also that Rotterdam is the city where there are the largest sorters of textile fabrics. So this is also interesting, how a city basically receive immense volumes of textile from all over Europe, and already decide in which countries to ship it back for making the largest turnover. But also they are in a huge crisis now because the quality of textile is declining. More people tend to use peer sort of apps to sell their clothing, but also they are exploring this different way, let's say, to keep parts of this textile locally or in the Netherlands. At the same time, a huge chunk of their market with Russia and Ukraine has been not being able to sell. So we have really different players, from very micro, small, almost one solo business, to larger entities with also different level of technological innovation. And that's also what it's interesting to have two completely different cities. Thanks.
Thank you, Mariangela and Young, for elaborating on that. There are now two questions to Marta in the chat. So one from Daniela. She would like to know which types of PPE you're focusing on, and if you already know about the new applications of recycled fabrics.
Yes, actually, the fabrics that are manufactured, the recycled fabrics will be used for new PPEs. So this is why we need to be very precise in the process, because we are planning to have new regulations. Also, the fabrics that are used, the PPEs, are Marina works in a wide range of fabrics. We are using fabrics that are in garments for example, firefighters, foundries, electrical risks, and so on. You can check the website and you will see all the fabrics that they are manufacturing. So the range is wide, and the risks are high, because some of these uses are very restringent. Well, we have a lot of regulations, and this is why the PPEs, the new recycled fabrics must achieve these high quality standards.
Thanks, Marta. And there's a second question to you. asking how you want to address the following two topics. So for one, depending on the waste type, you will need different ways of recycling: fibers, yarns, fabric, garment, used garment. So how you're tackling this. And the second part is, how are you tackling taking back the recycled fibers into the process, starting with yarn challenge. The challenge will be to supply uniform material, especially in this technical applications. Requirements are quite demanding, as you already mentioned.
Yes. We are using we are recycling all this. We are recycling all of this separately, and we are doing it using a mechanical recycling right now. So the kind of fibers that we are using need mechanical recycling, and of course we have to do a shredding first with a used garment. Well, first washed, then shred, and in order to have the new fibers. Now we are in the process of making the yarn, so we are checking exactly which kind of recycling we are doing, meaning which fabrics or waste can mix with the other ones in order to achieve this quality. So this is something that we are working on it now. And that's it.
Great, thank you so much for answering the questions in the chat.
Thanks.
Thank you. So I'll bring back my screen. Yes, so I think there are no further questions. So thanks to all our speakers. I would like to close this webinar with sharing a few upcoming activities and events that might be interesting for everyone who's listening to join. So of course we'll continue with our ECOSYSTEX Insights Series in March, and in May are the next webinars foreseen. And I would also like to already invite you to save the date for our annual ECOSYSTEX conference, which will very likely take place from the 29th of September to the 1st of October in Gothenburg. These dates are yet to be fully confirmed, but it's very unlikely that we'll change them. But you can already put it in your calendar, and more information will be shared if you are subscribed to the public members-only mailing list, and of course also via our LinkedIn channel in due time. And yeah, this year we'll focus on the topics of circularity and recycling. So if that's what you're specifically interested in, you can put this conference on your map for this year to attend. But of course, there are not only our own ECOSYSTEX activities, there are also member activities upcoming. So the IRIS project will present a textile case study on the 6th of February in a webinar on safe and sustainable by design. The textile case study will be presented in this half-an-hour time slot. The webinar itself is a bit longer, but of course you can also listen to case studies from other value chains when it comes to safe and sustainable by design. Then the SUSTRAC project is organizing a workshop from vision to implementation, shaping policies to boost circular bio-based transition. And there the textile focused webinar will take place on the 28th of February, to which you can register. And then in May, we have our own Textile ETP conference upcoming. This year we're going to Alcoy in Spain, and the big theme of our conference will be eco-design, and also there we will share more information and soon launch registrations in mid of February. And if you go to our website, you can already have a look at the info we have on it so far. So it would be great to see you there already in May in person. Lastly, I would like to also highlight another activity that we at Textile ETP do, which is sharing, which is part of our learning formats, the Circular and Bio-Based Textiles Innovation Hub, in which we bring together European textile sustainability experts or people that want to learn more about it to learn, network, and collaborate. And we do this by organizing roughly 2 webinars every month and also a few online collaboration activities. So I invite you to also check that out. And I know my colleague will post a link in the chat about it as well, where you can have a look at the planning for the first half of the year, because as this is an basically annual subscription, it makes sense to join at the beginning of the year. So have a look. And when it comes to ECOSYSTEX, if you're new to this webinar, it might be interesting for you how you can stay in touch. So please do follow us on LinkedIn. You can just type in ECOSYSTEX and you'll easily find us. We also have a relatively new, beautiful website since October last year that I invite you to check out to learn more about our all our member projects, what we do, our working groups, what they have published, and so on and so forth. There's also a publications database where you can find public deliverables from our member projects. And of course, if you are working in a EU-funded textile sustainability and circularity project and are not an ECOSYSTEX member yet, of course, you're very welcome to reach out to us by email, and then we can share the next steps, how you could become an ECOSYSTEX member. So with that being said, I would like to thank all our speakers for today, and also to everyone who asked questions in the chat and answered them as well. So it was great to have all of you here, and wishing you a lovely Friday afternoon, and see you soon online, I hope. Thanks.